What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. And with this being said, man, I want to talk about Rich Paul, man. And it just seems to me that every time Rich Paul opens his mouth when he talk, he just makes it so obvious that he don't really know what he's talking about, right? And so for Rich Paul to be a business partner of LeBron James and to be as incompetent as what he is, in my opinion, is just, to me, it's just a like, it's like a barometer of what is to come for LeBron James once he retired from basketball, right? And to surround yourself with guys who really don't know what they're doing, LeBron James is really going to be in trouble. And so one of many examples of this was a interview that I ran across that Rich Paul gave to what's the guy name? What was the guy name? I'm gonna find his name. He gave this interview to what was the reporter name? I forgot the guy, but he this is his show, and so the subject of David Falk was talking about LeBron James as far as being a guy who cherry picks, right? And what cherry pick mean for people who don't know either, well, the way David Falk, he said he cherry picked what teams LeBron James went to, and so he was able to, to set it up or try to set it up so he'll be able to have an advantage and be able to win, right? So that's what David Falk meant by the term cherry pick when he was referring to LeBron James. And so I was listening to Rich Paul respond to that and watch how Rich Paul responds to it, because this is not the meaning of it.
Falk said something the other day about LeBron cherry picking, and they was talking about it this morning. And I'm like, that's interesting to use the term cherry picking coming from someone who literally had John Thompson, Dean Smith, and Mike Krzyzewski supporting his business, putting superstar athletes in the lap. I just thought that was very unfair and a little beneath David Falk for a number of reasons. And so we can't have revisionist history, and we all want to.
All right, so now cherry picking, David Falk did have, let me see, he got players from John Thompson. He did get players from Duke and North Carolina, right? But that's not cherry picking, right? That was, these coaches were referring these players to David Falk is because they had relationships with David Falk. So it was a business, it was a business agreement that they had together. So let me allow Rich Paul to continue, though.
Just determine who's the GOAT and who's the best, and so on and so forth. But I just thought that was a little beneath David to say that, and I'll table that there.
But. Well, because we were going to bring that up, and for those who might not know what Rich is referring to, is a Sports Business Journal quote from the longtime agent of Jordan saying, "I really liked LeBron, but I think if Jordan had cherry picked what teams he wanted to be on and two other superstars, he would have won 15 championships."
And again, when you look at that, right?
Right, and see that right there explains what David Falk was talking about. He was talking about LeBron James cherry picking the players that he wanted to play with and the teams that he wanted to play for to put himself in the best position. It's totally different than what David Falk did from, like, a scouting standpoint, right? Because when you think about it, if that's the case, then Rich Paul he cherry picks himself, right? When you see a group of young, talented NBA prospects and you try to recruit them, that could be, that could be interpreted as cherry picking, but it's not. It's just recruiting basketball players for your firm so you can represent them.
Again, the cherry pick, I've discussed that. The two other superstars, Michael never had to leave. Michael's never been the underdog in any finals. Not one time. Michael never had a.
All right, so why? Let me address that. He says that Michael never had to leave Chicago and he's never been the underdog in any finals. And the reason why Michael never had to leave, or Mike never had to, he never was the underdog, is because Mike put that work in. Mike earned the right that, like if you thought that Mike was the underdog, Mike was, at any point in his career, Mike took that personally. And that's the difference between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. So for Rich Paul to bring that up and say, well, and try to make it look like LeBron James was set up in a, in a bad situation, and it was up to LeBron James to make that situation better. He is the, the so-called, he's so-called King James. If he's King James, why would you call him, or make him an underdog, right? Or feel like he has to go somewhere else to win. That's not how so-called GOATs operate.
24-hour, 365 news cycle. He never had shows built strictly to criticize him. People made millions of dollars criticizing LeBron James. That was their entire job.
All right, so now here you go playing like the victim card for LeBron James. And what I will say about the media, like social media today is, I mean, they didn't have that back when Mike played, right? But if you look at the way most athletes moved around back in those days, they were still private about what they did, right? So if sometimes the media did shine the spotlight, like they shined the spotlight on Mike when it came to gambling, and a few, a couple things they shined the spotlight on. But professional athletes, not just basketball, but you find it in football and baseball, they were always kind of kept things close to the vest as far as like what they put out there, because they knew the dangers of media, right? They knew that the media can paint you in a bad light, and really there's nothing that you can do about it. Now, the thing about media today, we have social media, and people think that they can compete with mainstream media and kind of like combat that with with like a Twitter account or an Instagram account, and you can't do it. You still have to do the things that Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and all of those athletes did back then. You gotta stay private. You can't, and that's how you combat mainstream media. You gotta keep everything out of the spotlight, because once you put your life in the spotlight and you start doing too many interviews, Michael Jordan don't do a whole lot of interviews now. Most professional athletes, high profile professional athletes, once they step away from professional sports, they kind of like to fly under the radar.
And when you talk about the difficulty of it all, Michael played for Dean Smith, Michael played for Phil Jackson, and Michael had Jerry Krause. I'm the biggest Michael Jordan fan ever. I love Michael Jordan. And I don't think Michael Jordan would have used the term cherry pick, so I'm not up here to just credit Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan transcended our game to a level that we all benefited from, right? And I'm more so focused on less about who's the GOAT and why I can't be at a dinner with those two guys having a great conversation. And I think that those type of comments is also the reason why people that look like me in my community always think there can only be one king.
Where have you ever seen two kings? Like whatever countries have kings and royal families and stuff like that, where do they have two kings at? That's why I think that LeBron James, once he retired from basketball, LeBron James is he in trouble with these, surrounding himself with people like this. LeBron James, he is in trouble, because these, like, Rich Paul is not even good at spinning narratives, right? He just say stuff and think that because he has that platform that people going to buy and that it makes sense.
And why it's so uncommon to see a community of successful Black men. So I thought that was very, again, beneath David Falk with all the success he's had and all the cherry picking that he's been able to do. He actually has a bag of cherries, you know. So I'll leave that there, though.
Yeah, I you know, this guy Rich Paul, man. The more he talk and the more he you know, he advocate for LeBron James, I think the more damage he do. Once LeBron James is his playing days are over with, it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be open season on LeBron James as far as a business standpoint, because LeBron James don't have people in his who are qualified to represent him in the business world. He just have like a lot of yes men and friends around him, people who really just riding the coattails of LeBron James. And every time I hear this guy Rich Paul make a statement, it just becomes so, you know, it just becomes obvious that LeBron James is in trouble. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm gonna check y'all out in the next video. Peace.